find it boring. The general idea of slice of life is, like the name implies, to capture a slice of someone's regular day-to-day life. It's usually characterized by a much slower pace with more emphasis on what we would consider mundane experiences. Some people think that slice of life means no development happens across the series, but that's not necessarily true. Oftentimes the genre is paired with comedy, drama, or romance. Early slice of life anime that were very influential include Azumanga Daioh, Hidamari Sketch, and Lucky Star. If you want a modern slice of life to enjoy, I would recommend Kobayashi Dragon Maid or Nanan Biori. Romance is another controversial genre because it often takes way too long for anything to actually happen relationship-wise, but this can be chalked up to cultural differences. In Western shows, the romance genre isn't necessarily about whether the couple will get together, it's about if their relationship will stand the test of time. But with romance anime, it's more often about if the relationship will happen at all. That's why oftentimes a romance anime will take its time getting the main characters together. There are also many common tropes in which a person mishears the other confession, causing the entire relationship dynamic to be reset. This can be frustrating, and personally I hate the trope too, so if you want some good romance anime that still take a while to develop but don't use those tropes, check out Kaguya-sama or Golden Time. If you want a romance anime that's more akin to Western TV shows, check out Horimiya, although I will say that I think the manga is better. Isekai literally translates to different or other world. It's technically a subgenre of fantasy that revolves around a person from our world being transported into a fantasy one. This can happen through many different ways, but in Isekai it usually happens using a portal or reincarnation. While many people think of Isekai as a modern genre, it's actually a very old genre. The idea of going to another world was always a popular one. I mean, think about it, Alice in Wonderland came out in 1865. Really the first Isekai if you ask me. But if we're talking about modern Isekai anime, the originator can actually be traced back to Zero no Tsukaima, which helped popularize Naruto web novels. If you want to learn more about the history of modern Isekai, check out the video I made on that subject. But basically, Zero no Tsukaima fanfiction is actually what inspired light novels like Re:Zero, which in turn inspired stories like Mushoku Tensei. However, the popularity of adapting light novels into anime really began with Sword Art Online and its huge success, despite the fact that SAO isn't really a isekai to begin with. Fantasy is a very all-encompassing term for any story with fantastical elements. This means that it can actually include shonen fantasy like Hunter x Hunter or Full Metal Alchemist, but it also includes high fantasy like Frieren. It covers dark fantasy like Claymore or Berserk, but it also covers historical fantasy like Demon Slayer or Inuyasha. While in the West we tend to think of fantasy as mainly just high fantasy, this is because Tolkien's works have been so influential to our art. In anime, fantasy usually takes inspiration from a many number of things, so in a certain sense, you could say that fantasy is one of the biggest genres in anime as a whole, and for that reason, it's hard to give a specific recommendation for the genre. Shoujo is another demographical term and not necessarily a genre. It directly translates to girl, so shoujo anime are more often targeted towards younger girls.